And we are back. Welcome to my preview and predictions for Game Week 6 in La Liga. Yes, we do have a full programme of La Liga matches for you this midweek. And a quick apology that I almost forgot that this was going to be happening. That's why I didn't advertise it in yesterday's video. I completely forgot about this. But thankfully, I got reminded yesterday morning and we managed to get this all put together over the course of the last 24 hours. And I want to say a massive thank you to every single one of you guys that got involved in the community polls that I only posted something like 18 hours ago. We had a whole lot of votes for these matches, so thank you so much for getting involved in the community polls as always. And without any further ado, we're just going to jump straight into these 9 matches. The only match that isn't on there is Celta Vigo and Real Betis that was played a few weeks ago. Those two sides are going to be in action in the Europa League this week. Those Europa League videos coming for you now tomorrow morning for tomorrow's matches, and then the other one on Thursday morning for Thursday's matches. And we've still got one more video for you this morning, which will be the second part of my League Cup predictions for this week in England. Without any further ado, let's just get straight into it. We've got 4 matches for you tonight, and then I think it is 3 on Wednesday and 2 on Thursday. So the first game of tonight sees Athletic Club Bilbao taking on Girona. Two sides that have had a real rough week. Bilbao come into this after losing their last 3 matches in a row without scoring. It was a 2-0 defeat for Valencia this weekend, and in the process, they had centre-back Vivian sent off. That was before Valencia's 2 goals. For Girona, arguably their flop was even harder. They lost 4-0 at home to fellow side in the relegation zone, Levante, who are of course promoted to La Liga last season, and they had 2 players sent off in the process of that defeat, which means they are still rock bottom of La Liga after the first 5 weekends. Obviously, due to all of the red cards that both of these sides have sustained, all of Vivian Witzel and Victor Reis are going to be suspended respectively for these two sides, and both sides still have injuries as well. Athletic Club Bilbao without Nico Williams still, and Girona are going to be without Sigankov and David Lopez. Honestly, the way these two sides have played over the last couple of weeks, a 0-0 draw genuinely wouldn't surprise me. But given the fact that Girona's defence has just been so bad, the amount of suspensions and injuries they've got to first-team players, I do think Bilbao are going to score a goal. And they did beat Girona here 3-0 last season as well. So I don't think the victory is going to be so severe this time around, but I do think Bilbao are going to take it. And I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to them. Second game tonight sees Espanyol taking on Valencia. Espanyol did stay in the top 4 following defeat at the Bernabeu at the weekend. But to be fair to them, they still put on a pretty decent showing, having near enough the same amount of chances and XG as Real Madrid in that match despite losing. For Valencia, as you know, they beat Athletic Club Bilbao 2-0 at the weekend. What could be the real key indicator coming into this match, though, is the respective home and away form of these two sides so far this season. As things stand, Espanyol have played 3 games at home. They have won all 3. Valencia have played 2 games away and have lost both of them. But it should be noted that the last 5 fixtures between these two sides have ended in draws. Last season, both matches ended 1-1. So there's never really much to split between these two sides. But I do think that home form for Espanyol and the away form for Valencia could make an impact here. In terms of the team news, Miller remains suspended for the home side. There are no fresh injury concerns for either, no suspensions for Valencia coming into this. To be fair, I do think the draw is probably still the most likely result. But I've said throughout this preview, I do think Espanyol should be considered the favourites for it. They've made a really strong start to the season, and I genuinely believe they're going to keep it up here as well. So I'm going for a 2-1 victory to Espanyol. Now we have 2 sides that enjoyed victories at the weekend. We have Levante, who, as I mentioned, beat Girona 4-0 away, and Real Madrid, as I've also mentioned, beating Espanyol 2-0. That result incredibly means that despite Levante being down in 16th place in La Liga and Real Madrid being first, Levante have actually only scored one fewer goal than Real Madrid so far this season. It's just the 7 extra goals that they've conceded that is seriously letting them down and means they are down in 16th near the relegation zone. Meanwhile, Real Madrid have had an absolutely perfect start to their season, 5 wins out of 5 in the league. And what's even better for them is some of their injured players managed to get some minutes at the weekend. Jude Bellingham and Camavinga both coming on in the final seconds of that match, and both are expected to play a larger part in this game here, potentially one or both of them even starting the match coming into it. For Levante, obviously they were playing against 9 men for the vast majority of that second half, which allowed them to actually rest a lot of their key players coming into this massive game against Real Madrid. So both sides are pretty much in a position where their side is going to be relatively fresh. They've not got any fresh injury or suspension concerns coming into it. Should be noted that in the 2 home matches that Levante have played so far, they've lost 3-2 and drawn 2-2. So expect an awful lot of goals in this match. You know Levante are going to give it their all. But realistically, I do think Real Madrid should be considered the strong favourites for this one. Last time these sides met, you wouldn't be surprised to know it was a 3-3 draw. Just kind of proves the sort of style of play Levante like to play. But I don't think that's going to happen in this one. I think there's going to be as many goals, though, because I'm going for a 4-2 victory to Real Madrid. And then the final game taking place tonight is between 2 sides who also won at the weekend. We have Sevilla, who won 2-1 at Alaves, and we have Villarreal, who won at home to Osasuna. That result actually means that Sevilla are now 3 games unbeaten, and that's allowed them to work their way into the top half, now sitting in 9th place. Villarreal are now up to 3rd in the league, although it should be noted that they've only got 1 point from their 2 away games so far in La Liga this season. However, Sevilla have actually only got 1 point from their 2 home matches so far in La Liga this season. So, could be a really interesting one to call this. In terms of the team news, Sevilla lost Gonzalez early on in their victory at the weekend, but for Villarreal, it was even worse, losing both Juan Foyth and Akomash. I probably butchered his name there, but all 3 are now expected to miss this game as a result. Coming into this, Villarreal have actually won their last 3 meetings against Sevilla. They won on this ground 2-1 last season. I can see with their building injury issues, because they do have a lot of other players missing already, Villarreal, on top of the 2 that have been added from the weekend. I would have them as favourites, but I do think those injury problems are going to continue to be an issue in regards to them getting results. So I'm actually going to go for a draw in this one, even though I do think Villarreal should be considered the favourites. I'm going for a 1-1 draw. That rounds off tonight's predictions. Let's move on to tomorrow then, and we start off with Getafe taking on Alaves, 2 sides who lost at the weekend. Getafe, as expected, lost away at Barcelona. For Alaves, they'll be disappointed that they weren't able to get anything from their home match against Sevilla, considering how good a start to the season they had. That defeat still leaves them in 10th place in the table, which shows how well they have actually done so far. But now they're coming up against a side they have a really, really poor record against. They lost both matches to Getafe last season. They didn't score in either match they played against Getafe last season. And the last time they got a win over Getafe, they've only managed to do it once since 2018. So that is 1 win out of the last 12 meetings between these sides for Alaves. Getafe should definitely be considered the strong favourites for this one. In terms of the team news, both sides actually came out of the weekend fixtures completely unscathed, but rather bizarrely, both of their managers got booked respectively in their 2 matches, so they both need to be careful coming into this one. They do not want to pick up any suspensions this early on in the season. I do just think, given how good Getafe have been so far this season, including how good they've been at home, I don't really see any other result than a Getafe win. Maybe something like a 0-0 draw, but I think that would be a genuine surprise. For me, Getafe should be taking this one fairly comfortably, but not too comfortably. I'm going for a 2-0 victory for them. Whilst that game is going on, you've then got Atletico Madrid taking on Rayo Vallecano. These 2 sides drew at the weekend. Incredible how we've had a run of games where every team coming into this has had the same sort of result. Atletico Madrid drew 1-1 at Mallorca. Rayo Vallecano drew 1-1 with Celta Vigo. It actually happened. 5 1-1 draws in a row for Celta Vigo. More on them in our Europa League videos this week. And then, of course, they'll be back on the La Liga predictions videos coming up for you on Friday. At the moment, it means that Atletico Madrid have now only got 1 win from their opening 6 matches, meaning they've only accumulated 6 points from those 5 matches. So they say not 6 matches. 1 win from 5, 6 points from their opening 5 matches. Really not the start Diego Simeone would have wanted for the season. For Vallecano, it's not actually gone any better. You can see they're lower down in the table, and that's because they've only been able to accumulate 5 points from their first 5 matches with 1 win, 2 draws, and 2 defeats. So neither side on great form coming into this. In terms of the team news, the good news for Atletico Madrid is that Julian Alvarez returned at the weekend, although he did miss a penalty in that draw. But the bad news for them is that Sorloth got himself sent off, and he is now going to be suspended. For Vallecano, no fresh injury concerns, but there is no expected return for Luis Felipe coming into this match, which is a key loss for them in their defence. In terms of the head-to-head record, really strong for Atletico Madrid coming into this one. They have won 9 of the last 10 fixtures against Vallecano, and drawing the other one. It was a 3-0 victory for them last season. Again, given how poor they've been at the start of the season, I wouldn't expect it to be a heavy victory for Atletico coming into this one, but I would be surprised if they didn't get the result. But then it has been really poor from them so far. I'm just going to go for a very cautious 2-1 home win. Final game on Wednesday sees Sociedad taking on Mallorca. And here we find 2 sides, both in the bottom 3, both without a win and both only on 2 points from their opening 5 games. Now, granted, we have spoken an awful lot about how difficult Mallorca's fixtures have been so far this season. But when you look at it, is a draw at home to a poor Atletico Madrid side this season, especially when they have 10 men, actually a good result? For Sociedad, I don't think many are too surprised that they lost away at Betis last week, but that was off the back of losing at home to Real Madrid, who also had 10 men in that match. So neither of these sides are playing some good football at the moment, and I just think it makes this game really tough to call. The only real positive you can throw at either side coming into this fixture is that Mallorca actually have a pretty decent record over the last couple of seasons over Sociedad. They actually won both fixtures over Sociedad last season, including winning 2-0 here. So maybe that gives them the slight edge coming into this one, but to be honest, I really don't want to call this one way or the other. In terms of injuries and suspensions, both sides are completely clear in terms of where they were from last week, so we're purely going on face value. Very much like the opening fixture of the day, I don't think the Bilbao-Girona game is going to be a particularly entertaining one. I certainly don't think this one is going to be an entertaining one. And given how bad both of these sides have been, I just honestly think anything could happen. This is one of them games where I always say a 0-0 wouldn't surprise me because neither of these teams seem to be able to score. But a 3-3 wouldn't surprise me because neither of these teams seem to be able to defend either. So I'm just going to go for a blanket 1-1 draw. I would probably just have Sociedad as favourites because I think on paper they've got a slightly stronger team. But Mallorca won here last season and Mallorca have finished higher in the table than Sociedad last season. So who knows? This is a horrible game to call. I'm just going to go for that 1-1 draw. And then finally, we have Thursday night, which has 2 matches. And it is starting off with Osasuna being the next team to try and stop the Elche machine from going unbeaten. It is an incredible start for the newly promoted side at the top of their division so far. For Osasuna, it was defeat away at Villarreal at the weekend. For Elche, it was a 1-0 home victory over fellow promoted side Real Oviedo. Coming into this, though, I do have to give Osasuna some credit because they have played 2 and won 2 at home, whereas Elche so far have played 2 and drawn 2 away from home. So something has got to give in this fixture here. Either Osasuna's home record's going out the window or Elche's away record is going here. Incredibly, a win for the home side would actually put them above Elche. Considering how many places there are in the table between them, it kind of shows how tight it has been at the start of this La Liga season. Granted, we're only 5 weeks into it. but it just kind of proves how tight it has been. I do think, though, Osasuna should probably just be considered the favourites for this one. In terms of the team news, they are going to be without Rosier. He was sent off in the first half against Villarreal at the weekend. No fresh injury concerns for Elche. They're doing very, very well at the moment. They're keeping their players fit. They're performing week in, week out. And I do think this is going to be a very, very close game, especially when you consider the fact that the 3 of the last 4 meetings between these sides have ended in draws as well. So it certainly would not surprise me to see Elche keep that unbeaten run going. I think a draw is just as likely as an Osasuna win, but I do kind of fancy the home side to get the result in this. So I'm just going to go for a 1-0 victory to Osasuna. And then finally, arguably the easiest prediction of the night sees Real Oviedo taking on Barcelona. It's another game without a goal for Oviedo against Elche at the weekend. That means they've only scored 1 goal from their first 5 matches back in La Liga. Thankfully for them, it was in a 1-0 victory. For Barcelona, it was an unsurprising, very strong 3-0 win over Getafe at the weekend, which means they remain unbeaten at the start of the campaign. And to be honest, coming into this, there really shouldn't be too much difficulty taking on Oviedo here. In terms of the team news, Vinas is still suspended for Oviedo, and now Illich has picked up an injury at the weekend. For Barcelona, their latest injury concern is to Fermin Lopez, but they still have a whole host of attacking options available to them. I just genuinely think there is no other result here than a Barcelona win. If Oviedo can hold them to a 0-0 draw, maybe, but I just think Barcelona are too good for it. I'm rounding off this week's La Liga predictions with a 3-0 win to Barcelona. All that is left to do then is to see what you guys have been saying over the last 18 hours on the community page. And again, a massive thank you for all of you that have got involved in this video over the course of the last 24 hours. This is what you think is going to be happening in this midweek round of fixtures. All of you think essentially that Bilbao are going to win. Very, very unsure on the Espanyol Valencia game. You've all gone Real Madrid. Most of you have gone Villarreal. Most of you have gone Getafe. Most of you have gone Atletico Madrid. Most of you have gone Sociedad. Most of you have gone Osasuna. And almost all of you have gone for Barcelona. As always, let me know the thoughts you have not given so far down in the comment section below. Drop a like if you've enjoyed. Share it with a friend. Subscribe to this channel if you're new around here with notifications turned on. Europa League fixtures are available for you tomorrow morning. And you can still vote on those matches over on the community page right now. A massive thank you very much for watching once again. I'll be back very shortly with my second part of my Carabao Cup predictions for the week. And then, like I say, tomorrow morning and Thursday morning, all of your Europa League previews and predictions will be available for you. So a final thank you very much for watching once again. And I'll see you very soon.